Hola a todos y bienvenido a Honest Trailer Commentaries. I am Spencer J. Gilbert. That's Joe Starr. That's Dan Murrell. And if you're wondering why I spoke Spanish, because I'm learning, but I also have another language aficionado here, an ASL interpreter, Brian Carr.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And thank you so much for helping out with the Quiet Place Honest trailer. We wanted to do something a little different for this one because it's a good movie, and good movies are boring to talk about. So we thought we'd latch on to the sign language, and it is ASL in this movie, right?
Right, American Sign Language.
Yeah. And we thought we'd bring in a translator. So congratulations. You might be one of the first people who's appeared on camera in an Honest trailer. There aren't too many.
We were trying to figure it out. It was the guys from Red Letter Media way back when.
Yeah.
And John a few times. And I couldn't think of, I'm sure.
Jordan Voight Roberts,
that's right, for
the
Skull
director,
Island. Yeah.
And Brian.
It's very few numbers of
Welcome to the club.
people.
I'm honored. Thank
That is
you
a
so
weird
much.
group of people.
And
Just
Brian.
in a
So
room together.
if it's your first time watching, we are going to talk about the Honest trailer for A Quiet Place, and if you stick around to the end, you'll see some cut jokes and some things that didn't make it into the final cut that you saw there. But first, we're just going to give general thoughts, impressions of the movie. I liked it. It's damn good. I was surprised and thrilled and titillated. Not titillated, just enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. What about you, Joe?
That's why I'm so glad it worked out having Brian come in to do this, because it was going to be 4 minutes of us going, this was an excellent film, if we didn't have a fun angle to play with. So yeah, worked out.
Yeah.
I really like this movie a lot.
There's some where we know we're gonna genre bust a little bit in the sense with our trailer, in the sense of like we have to do something different here because that's the angle. Otherwise, so I know that we briefly discussed it being completely silent with only subtitles, but then we were like,
They whisper in the movie.
They whisper. Plus, it's like I think that might be funny for like 30 seconds. I think we decided, and then it's like 4 minutes would be a little much.
Yeah.
So it got to John. Quiet voice.
He has a good, deep, epic whisper. He has an epic whisper.
He has a very epic whisper. Yeah.
I thought that was a comedic line. I liked that when he said, all right, that's better, and then whisper.
Yeah.
I did enjoy the fact that you guys brought in an interpreter. I just thought that it was a great kind of nod to the deaf community to have their language represented, so I appreciate that.
Well, did you feel the same way about the movie, right? Like one of the actresses is actually deaf?
Right, Millicent Simmons. That's why I know that the deaf community actually, from what I've heard, has received it very well. And so, anytime you put sign language in a movie, it's under the scrutiny of the deaf community. And so, from what I've heard, this has been taken very well.
Cool. What are some bad examples of sign language in film?
Well, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus.
Oh, that's what we do here.
Because I do enjoy a lot of films that I see American Sign Language in, although we will always nitpick it a little bit. I think John Wick 2.
Ruby Rose was
Yeah.
deaf in that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I could nitpick it. She did really well, considering I know that she's not a native speaker. She hasn't been signing a long time, but it's under the microscope anytime you see sign language on the big screen.
So did Krasinski and Emily Blunt, did they do well in this movie?
They did. So you could tell that they weren't native users, but I think that actually plays well to the story, because usually parents to deaf children, they don't learn sign language until their children start learning sign, right?
Yeah.
And so it kind of shows that they've been signing for a few years, a handful of years. So it was actually pretty accurate.
Yeah.
So it worked out perfectly.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was going to say, because they probably started post-apocalypse, but no, they probably started when their daughter was born, because she predates.
Right, the apocalypse, because it'd been less than a year, I think, or just a little bit more than a year.
Yeah.
I don't think there's many sign language classes post-apocalypse.
Yeah, that's true.
So given that factor, I think
No, the community college survived, and then there were some, there were some venues where you could go, I think.
If it did, that teacher cleans up.
Yeah, exactly. The one professor left in the post-apocalypse to teach everything.
That's the sequel. So why don't we take a look at the Honest trailer for A Quiet Place. Hit it, JT. Oh, nice, it worked.
I can kind of hear it.
In a world full of loud movies, starring loud people, play to theaters full of loud fans, one premise will shock and horrify the modern audience.
Troll
Having
2?
to shut
Yes.
the up. That's better. A Quiet Place.
Pause. Now, Dan, didn't you say that your theater-going experience for this movie was somewhat ruined by people talking?
No.
Or do you just always say that?
No, that's often the case. But no, I'd heard anecdotes of Hereditary being ruined by many people by bad audiences. But I would imagine there were probably a few screenings that were also ruined by audiences for this one. I'm very lucky. I get to go to mostly critic screenings, so they're very well behaved. But I can imagine a bad audience would definitely hinder your enjoyment of this film.
I imagine a lot of just even crinkling,
Yeah, it would just
nacho
irritate
bag
the
or
hell out of you.
something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
If this is something you want to watch, maybe even alone with headphones.
Yeah, I had to watch this in a room with you guys with headphones, and I was really into this movie, and I was trying really hard to make sure you guys didn't notice me in my corner of the office going like and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I looked like an idiot.
Yeah.
It was good.
So quiet down, kids. All right, let's keep going.
I have told the kids. Oh, we're starting over.
Yep.
No, we're not.
That's better. A Quiet Place. Psst, hey, can we get an epic ASL guy to help me out here?
Hey,
Thanks, Brian.
Hey.
Explore the near future of A Quiet Place. On one hand, it's a dystopia where blind aliens kill anyone who makes a sound. But on the other, it's every dad's paradise.
So
where
pause for a
responsible
second.
your
children
point,
can-
right, Spencer?
Well, yeah, we'll get into that in a second. But
Yeah.
Brian, is it hard to keep up with John? What's the pace like? Is this tough to do, or could you do this in your sleep?
That is incredibly difficult. Yeah, the pace is super fast. There's a lot of loaded terminology that sometimes requires expansions, and so I was trying to figure out the most economic way I could sign it to keep up. And I was going to ask if they sped up the frame rate a little bit on
They
my
did.
sign.
Yeah.
little bit.
Just a smidge.
Just a little bit. So we went into this, and in my head, I was like, well, you always see, once or twice a year, a viral video goes out of like a Wu-Tang concert or something like that, and like someone, they have like an ASL interpreter signing like rappers, and they're just flying. So in my head, I kind of went into this like, oh, someone will do it. It's fine. It's easy. And then you came in, and because I was the one working with you on this, and you're like, well, talk about what expansions mean a little bit. It's like there's a movie, because you literally have to sign like there's a movie. It's called A Quiet Place.
Yeah, so expansions are just something that sometimes in ASL it takes more signs to explain what something means than a few English words, right? But it goes back and forth. You can do the same thing. Usually not when you're talking about hearing cultural references. But so if you say, oh, welcome to A Quiet Place, I have to say, oh, welcome. The movie called, quote, Quiet Place, and I've got to spell it all out, and I've got to be accurate, and I have to make sure that all my finger spelling is clear. And it's hard to keep up, Every letter that I'm signing, you just rolls off your tongue in a matter of seconds. So it also gives me carpal tunnel.
But you can't do quiet place. You got to spell it.
Right. So that's part of the ASL rules, the grammar, which is completely different. It's got its own grammar, its own language structure and rules. And so one of the rules is any pronoun you're supposed to spell.
Okay.
So your name, title of a movie, a location. The only, I guess, exception would be if you have name signs. Like, for instance, my name sign is just BDC, and that's what deaf people know me as. So there's a few things that you can do, some tools to kind of consolidate. But in this case, I did have to spell out the whole thing. I didn't even have a chance to really spell out everything I wanted to because of the speed. But yeah, it's quite a limiting factor when you're working on a timeline.
Yeah.
So
Sounds a little bit like when a few years ago for Transformers 4, we had someone come in and translate our script into Chinese.
Yeah.
And she was working on it, and she would hit a thing, and she'd just be like, "There's no word for that. Like, I have to give you the equivalent because that's not a real word." So that's what we found
Exactly.
out is that we tend to write in a style that is not easily translatable to
American
other
Devils,
languages.
though, that worked. That
That
went right
worked.
through.
Perfect.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep watching.
Finally get some peace and quiet with plenty of time for fishing, farm-to-table
Yeah,
meals.
I watched the first half of this movie being like, that's the life.
Kids are not allowed to
Sounds
enter.
great.
Hey, psst, hey, dude, can we trade lives?
Another layer in the
Watch
voice
The
guy.
Office's John Krasinski prove he's more than just a pretty gym face, but a wide
Pause.
range of pretty.
Yeah.
How do you translate
How do
Jim
you
face?
translate Jim
Yeah.
face?
I'm glad you asked me. I don't know. So I know he looks adorable, and he's kind
It's a
of
very specific adorable, though. He looks to camera and goes,
I tried to replicate that. I did, and so I kind of used. This is kind of a sign. It kind of means I don't know, naive, prudish, kind of. I don't know. He's not rock and roll, in your face, gritty, right? So, and then I have to try and mimic the face. So I just kind of did something goofy. But the first time I signed it on that take, I accidentally signed the sign for "I love you." So I hope everybody's going to notice. They're going to tear me to shreds. But I accidentally signed "I love you," which is really close. But the second time, I think I got it.
Yeah.
I want them to cut you some slack.
I hope they do.
Because challenges you discussed aside, like you hit these all. I think the most we did on one was like 3 takes.
Well, that and I had about a day or so to prepare. And so, like you were mentioning the Wu-Tang interpreters, I don't even know what the hell they're saying. It's super fast. It looks like they cranked up their frame rate to like 1,000. So, but they, if you know the lyrics, you know what they're saying. You can follow it. You've got context for the song. But yeah, a day to practice with that speed, it was pretty difficult. So, cut me some slack.
all right, slack cut. Let's keep going.
Gym Faces, with support from real-life wife Emily Blunt, the most badass female character that's also barefoot, pregnant, and not allowed to speak. But it's behind the camera where JK really shines, as he makes a directing debut that's 1 part Ridley Scott, 1 part James Cameron Titanic references,
This is weird.
and 6
you
parts
think those are intentional?
Tarantino foot
I
shots.
think that might have been subconsciously. And then yes, Tarantino. I wonder if this was. Did anyone go back? A lot of times Tarantino will release his list of like. Oh no, it came out this year. I wonder if this will be
movies
on
of the year?
Tarantino's list
This
of
is
like
at the
favorite
top.
movies.
Haven't yelled like that since Marvin Home Alone.
Gets me every time.
I'm glad that
for
worked
an
out.
awesome original horror movie premise.
No, that was
as long
perfect.
as you don't think too hard about it, where everyone always looks like they're holding in a fart, because a fart or burp or sneeze would equal death.
Now
With
pause. As I'm sure someone will point out in the comments, is they asked this to John in an interview, John K, and he said that I'm actually not recalling it exactly, but it was something to the tune of butt mufflers, of like farting into a pillow and like always having like silenced underwear or pants at hand that you can fart into. Same with sneezing and burping. Like
It's
you just
important to have the explanation.
Yeah. So he did
props to check
have
that.
an answer, though. He didn't think about that. Or the little boy on set, or the son, asked him about what to do if they had to fart in this universe.
That's a little inconsistent though, because like the beginning, they're in the store and little kids like running around on the tile floors, but then the spaceship is gonna drop and like they like run and jump and slide under the grab and like wasn't that louder than it would have been to let the thing? It's very specific about what is loud enough and what is not loud enough
Yeah.
to attract them. I think it's whatever the plot requires to be loud enough is loud enough, and
Yeah.
That's a good point that you pointed out, because in the beginning he's running around barefoot, just slapping his feet, and then later he's covering his tracks with light sand. So
right.
yeah.
Is it linoleum or tile? I guess is a
That's a
muffler.
no.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's a no-go.
Look, yes, you can nitpick this. Also, it's like, well, the aliens could have been distracted then. There's only 3 of them, They
the
can't be
area, yeah.
everywhere at once. But yeah, this was... he was so good at directing, and I don't want to let that slide past. This was such an amazing debut that none of that stuff annoyed me. Like
No.
usually, if it's a bad movie, you do start getting in your head about the rules of this. Well, that would never happen. But this, I was just totally invested the whole time.
Any movie, if you stop and think about it, is ridiculous. Almost
Sci-fi, horror,
Any
especially.
movie, if you actually sit down and logically piece it, it's whether or not those thoughts enter your mind when you're watching it or not.
Yeah.
And this, I agree. This one did not. I didn't sit there thinking like, well, that's inconsistent.
Right. But it does raise some questions if you wanted to maybe do the sequel about, I don't know,
Quieter places.
quieter places, farting in quieter places.
I did have a question, because when we did the references run in here with like Titanic and Ridley Scott, so how do you set those up? Is that similar to Jim Faces? Like there's a guy named Jim. He was a character from The Office.
Yeah, given the time restraints, I just had to make a decision, and I just tried to go with their last names. I had to kind of just consolidate, and so I was hoping that on screen the references that you were using, the clips, would
Will
be
help with-
sufficient to kind of fill in the blanks of what perhaps a deaf person watching would miss. And so Scott, and of course I said director and kind of prefaced it with movie director. And so Scott Cameron and Tarantino. However, I think Cameron, I ended his last name with an R, which is not correct, but hopefully they got the reference.
Cameroner.
Again, time and take, so.
Hey.
Yeah.
Better than we could have done.
Yeah, exactly.
You've just been us shrugging the whole time.
I know
appreciate
2
your
languages to my barely one.
Yeah.
So,
All right, let's keep watching.
Taps are too loud, but snapping your fingers is fine. And where this waterfall lets you be as noisy
that's-
as you want.
Interesting.
But they don't just live next to the waterfall? I mean, come on. Don't even get me started on the ending
I
and
like your
military-grade
interpretation of
sonic
John's
weaponry.
frustrations as
Yeah.
The government's already developing it under the Denver airport.
Now, pause. Joe, this was your edition. Is this
This is all me.
been doing some research?
Oh
Watching
yeah,
some-
man.
The weird part of YouTube
Oh,
again?
you got to read up on the Denver airport, man. That's where all the shit is. Yeah, it's like
Well, you said this to me like it was a thing I should have known.
true.
You were like, yeah, the Denver airport. It's
Come on,
where the
guys.
Illuminati is underneath.
Yeah, I feel. Well, we've had funny conspiracy theory conversations before, so I figured Denver Airport would be one that you were like, oh yeah, that one's hilarious.
Okay.
Yeah, there's the Denver Airport's like legitimately weird. I don't think it's actually where the Illuminati lives, but it's shaped like a swastika, and there's like giant underground bunkers under it, and there's just weird Nazi paintings everywhere.
Huh.
It's a weird place.
It's suspiciously big.
genuinely-
It is
Yes.
massive. It's incredible. Like you walk in, it's like, what? No airport needs to be this big. It's insane.
Weird.
Yeah.
I've never been.
I will admit that I really forced that in mainly because I wanted whoever our ASL interpreter ended up being, turned out to be Brian. I really wanted someone to have to sign the government is developing sonic weaponry
Underneath the Denver airport. That rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I don't know how well that was conveyed, but something's being made under that airport.
Turn
as
on
far as
closed
I know.
captioning, you know.
Hopefully they won't have to, but
Yeah.
yes.
For that part, yeah, that's a weird sentence, Joe.
Yep.
The government's making something under that damn airport. That's all I know. That's all
But look,
say.
I get to cross something off my short list, so
What else is on there?
career happy.
Yeah.
Oh, a lot of remake Three Ninjas
Oh, okay.
with
that.
just me
Yeah.
playing all
Well-
the roles.
Oh boy.
This is my short list.
More like one ninja.
I retract my statement.
Have dinner at Zaxby's, which is my favorite regional fast food place. That's not like a hard thing to accomplish. I
Yeah,
just
I was
gotta go
gonna
back
say,
home.
that's pretty
I just
easy.
miss it.
Oh.
It's good food. It's really good chicken. Anyway, let's keep going.
Let's keep watching.
Port. So if you love survival horror movies and feature-length ASMR videos, strap in, but carefully, because the straps can get like really noisy, for a film that started its life as a potential Cloverfield sequel,
so
but in
glad
the
it wasn't.
capable hands
I know.
of Big Tuna, became a really solid one-off film.
Big
I
Tuna.
mean, come on.
Yeah.
Pause.
Be a sequel.
Pause.
I hope the deaf audience knows who Big Tuna is, because I didn't know who Big Tuna was.
It's
was
a
his
pretty obscure
nickname,
Office
yeah.
reference.
Yeah.
So that one is a deep cut for the people who watched a lot of Office.
Okay, well, they got the spelling.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay.
That's a pronoun. That's a
Great.
pronoun.
Yeah. Okay, great. Big tuna preserved in both languages. Keep going.
You don't need a sequel, unless it's like a super quiet aliens. Game over, man. Game over. Starring
Pause. I would watch a sequel, or more of a reimagining where everyone has to be making noise all the time, or else aliens will get you.
Oh wow.
Just the reverse.
Everyone's just like, oh! Everywhere they go. Bam, 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 bam.
So everyone is just me when I'm by myself.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And then they finally like get tired and fall asleep and then done.
It's like those dancing contests where the last person standing
Yeah.
wins.
Exactly. Yeah. There's some different places you can take it, but the premise, I don't think you necessarily need to go the Cloverfield direction.
No, I don't think so. I think I mean we know there were other people,
Yeah.
but then the question becomes like, at what point is it just diminishing returns? And you know, you do it again, but if you're just doing it the same thing, it's like, well, you know, what are you gonna bring to it? What's new? What's the twist?
Unless you're like just starting at the end and going forward from there of like this family and you care
Yeah.
about like, I don't know. I don't think it's fertile enough ground. I think it's just like a really, really good one-off.
It is.
Like this could honestly be a Twilight Zone episode, but they made a movie out of it.
Yeah.
But
A good movie.
they did a good movie.
yeah.
Because when you add the characterization and you care about the family and stuff like that, that's got yourself a picture.
Yep. That's a picture.
Yeah.
Green light.
Green light. All right, let's see starring.
Dunder Mifflin,
Okay, that's
Pause.
Sicario,
Thank you for not making me interpret that.
I think I included the clip where we bailed out on it in the outtakes.
Nice.
Sometimes we pitch starring ideas that we just to the room, just to like try to make each other shake our heads and go,
Yes.
"You're an
Yeah,
idiot."
that was-
And joke's on me because
Good one, Dan.
that one actually made it in.
Survived.
I was like, "What's the dumbest office pun I could possibly think of?"
You
And
found it.
Yeah.
Dunder Mufflin.
Dunder
was
Mufflin.
I was actually the original script that I got had Mute Guyver.
Guyver, yeah.
And so I ran that by my friend who's deaf and an ASL professor and one of my mentors, and he goes, "No, you can't interpret it. There's no equivalent."
Yes, we've got away with worse. Let's keep going.
Shikario. Spaceship. Literally turning it to 11. Oral coral.
That is one of my
Chekhov's
favorite
nail.
starrings ever.
The same
Oral
aliens
coral.
as After Earth, only they sense sound instead of fear. Did anyone else see After Earth? Rocket. No.
No.
And
Made John redo this to make it even longer.
It was a good decision.
I thought it would have been fun to interpret.
Is it the same?
game.
Is it this?
That's what would have made it fun.
Perfect.
this is a good reminder that Monopoly sucks and will get you killed in the apocalypse. As if you ever needed another reason not to play Monopoly, right?
It's you that hates Monopoly, right, Spencer?
Who likes Monopoly?
So, guy. I'm just gonna pretend that means you're welcome.
So what did you say there?
I do know what that means.
So I like that because I was able to use a similar hand shape for thank you, good, and a muted version of fuck off. It kind of means kind of screw you or go F yourself, but not as explicit as the middle finger.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's many ways you can do that. But yeah, it's kind of like an homage to like old Italians. Hey,
Yeah.
you know? But yeah, so I just said, so thank you, interpreter. And I said, F you, man. And he goes, that's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
So,
I handed that to Post and was like, okay, Kevin, so like, do this thing, and then he'll we need to time it up so that he signs fuck you or whatever. And I was just like, you'll know what it is. It's like the most clear thing in the whole
that
video.
transcends language right there.
Shout out, by the way, to Kevin and TJ on this one, because anytime we kind of mess with the formula, that it's twice as hard for them because we're out of our rhythms. We're doing different stuff with the pacing, sound effects, and they really did.
It's
a
an
great
opportunity
job
to
on this one.
grow.
Yeah.
Flex their creative muscles. By
Exactly.
giving them more work at the last minute.
When I used to edit them, I loved that, but it is also more pressure because the more conventional ones, you do kind of have a workflow and a rhythm and a pace, and you know how long it's going to take you to do something. And when you mess that up a little bit, it's like, oh, okay.
And honestly, props, because if I was an editor and you sat me down and you were like, match this language that you don't know at all, I would have shut down. I honestly just would have completely shut down and been like,
I was really impressed, actually. The cut that Max sent me, the first time I watched it, I thought, I don't know how they did it, but they managed to line it up very well. So I don't know if they watched a YouTube video on ASL or what, but it did. It lined up very well. So hats off.
Yeah, good job.
props to Kevin and TJ.
Yay.
All right, we got great editors. Let's see what they cut. What else we got?
Yeah, what do we leave?
Starring Mute
Stars.
Guyver,
Mute Guyver.
John Krasinski,
Other ones.
worst home birth
Oh, that scene.
ever. Actual Mary Poppins, y'all. Blunt force trauma. Quiet coral. Daredevil gorgons.
Stranger
Blind
Things.
venoms.
Yeah.
Gondor calls for aid.
It's tough to see, but
It's tough
yeah.
to see them,
Place.
yeah.
Loud jump scares.
Pause.
Silent.
This movie, just to go off on a little digression, I almost wish it didn't have a score.
Yeah.
I think that sometimes I was wondering what was music and what was actually happening, and I wish that it was just like they really committed and made a largely silent.
I don't think
silent
it
film.
did at one point.
Sure, for long
Yeah.
stretches it doesn't, but there's definitely swells of orchestra.
I mean, in the process of making it, I think it was a decision later in the game.
Yeah.
I think I remember reading the score was a decision later in the game, and subtitles.
Yeah.
were a decision later in the game. Because at first they were just going to have the audience like not really get what they're signing and just sort of
Kind of figure out from
live with it.
context. Yeah.
And then they decided to give it to the scene where he's like, you can't ever go in there, and he's trying to give her her implant.
Yeah.
Because it's like a really strong scene, and they're like, we really want people to know that one, but then it was like, well, if you have one scene with subtitles, then you kind of got to do the whole thing.
Maybe there's a DVD or a Blu-ray thing where you can isolate get rid of the music or something like that, and because you can turn off subtitle tracks. Be interesting.
Oh
to watch
yeah,
it.
that would actually be really cool.
Did I tell you guys when we were doing the honest trailer for Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and the YouTube or iTunes or whatever, however we converted the movie, had stripped the subtitles
Yeah.
out, and I didn't realize until like an hour into the movie. I was like, wow, they really immerse you into the whole culture here with
Yeah.
the apes talking to each other, and I realized that there had been subtitles the whole movie. I just
Didn't
really
know where
weren't
we're
on
going
the
with
version
this.
that I was watching.
I remember that.
I still
How do you
followed
know
it.
what the monkeys are saying? Like, subtitles? What? There's words. Anyways, what are the other titles we threw out?
Hill, not Talking Dead. Don't Speak. The Silence of the Gems.
That's good.
Starr. Troopers. I guess that's one way to make a baby sleep. Yeah, that's definitely not in any baby books.
So how would you have signed that?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, I ran it by my friend and I thought about it. I was hoping that if you kept it, it was just going to show the clip and I could point to it, because I don't want to have to sign "There's a baby that I'm gassing," But
Yeah, you don't want that on tape.
No.
but really, I just thought it would have been
Aside
a
from right
fun. I know I'm an interpreter, but I do have a sense of humor, and I thought it would have been a fun
Oh,
comical opportunity to kind of just look at it and
God. Not doing that.
okay. I guess it worked.
Signing away slowly.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being game, Brian. We really appreciate
Yes,
you putting
course.
yourself out there to be say some fairly stupid things that we wrote.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm glad I could actually throw some sign language in the video.
Yeah,
Well,
our
we
pleasure.
appreciate it. It gives it something a little different.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
we'll change the pace.
Yeah, no, this was nice because you never know how something's going to turn out. And got to walk out of that session like, okay, I think this gonna work. It's gonna work real good. Yeah.
I was a bit nervous at first, but yes, at the end, it worked out great. I'm super excited about it. Thank you guys.
Well, thank you, man.
Thank you.
And thank you, Joe Starr. And thank you, Dan Murrell.
Thank you, Spencer.
And thank myself, really, for being here. I hope you guys come back
Most
next
of all.
week, where we will be.
We're gonna one up ourselves.
We're gonna one up ourselves.
Oh.
Great pun. You'll figure it out from there. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.